Hello and welcome to the Brightics AI Accelerator tutorial series. This is episode number 2 on cluster management. Once you have installed the Brightics AI Accelerator on your AWS instance, AWS will supply you with an elastic IP address. You can type that into your browser with the port 9090, and that will bring you to this registration screen on which you will enter your name, company name, email address, and phone number just to provide your contact details to the cluster manager. Here we fill some basic values and click register to proceed to the next screen, where you will enter your AWS access credentials that you will have gotten from your AWS instance. Here we've filled out our credentials and have hidden them for the purposes of making this video. You will see that the next thing is to define how many CPUs and how many GPUs we're going to be using. And on AWS, there's of course a cost associated with each. When we click on Create, that cluster is created for you. And we can see now over time, as this cluster is being created, you see the logs giving you the information of all the elements that are being done. And you will be kept up to date as this cluster is being created through the resource acquisition, through the installation of Kubernetes on all of these nodes, and of course the installation of the AI accelerator itself. Here we can see that we are going to deploy a cluster that has no GPUs and 4 CPUs just for this demonstration. And you can follow along as the log file updates. Here we see that the creation is finished, and you can again review what has been created, but your cluster exists now and is ready to be used. Your cluster has an IP address, which is given here in the log file. You can use that IP address to go to the next browser window, open it up on port 30,000 to view the dashboard, and you will be able to access the Brightics AI Accelerator at your brand new cluster. We can sign into the cluster by using either kubeconfig or a token, depending on what you have. And here we are. This is our new cluster. We can review the nodes that have been created. We can see that there are some namespaces that we're able to use. And here we see that all the microservices that are required for Brightics AI Accelerator have been loaded and are in place. So now we can go on to actually use Brightics AI Accelerator by logging onto its page, and we see the interface here. There will be a separate tutorial on how to actually use Brightics AI Accelerator. Right now we will only go into the cluster management features. And here we see the cluster manager, where we have several functions to resize, pause, resume, and delete the cluster. Here we see the different workers that have been provisioned already by us creating the cluster. They are currently green in their status, which means they're active. That also means that you're paying for them. If we hit pause, all of these will be paused. We see now that we have paused them. The statuses are all in gray. So those workers have been paused, and we can go back and resume all of them. We can see here we have the 4 CPUs that we originally provisioned and 0 GPUs. That cluster can be resized once we find out that we need more or less resources. Here we update the number of CPUs to 1, so we decrease the size of the cluster. We press update, and that cluster is going to be resized, meaning also, of course, that the charge will decrease. You see here in the log file where that cluster resizing happens, and you'll be notified once that is done. Here we see the cluster has been resized. The number of CPUs has been changed to 1. Finally, we can go to the delete page. Once we're done with all of our work and we no longer need these resources, we can delete the cluster, in which case it will simply all be taken down. And you can see in the log file here, as the cluster is being decommissioned, you'll be kept up to date, and eventually you'll be told that the cluster has been successfully deleted. And that is the cluster management, where you can create, pause, resume, resize, and delete your cluster for your AI workloads. Thank you very much for attending the tutorial, and see you soon.